Every day, we experience a variety of cognitive and attentional states that fluctuate on a moment-to-moment basis. Along with these changes in mental states, we know that the brain states also dynamically change over time. The activity patterns of the whole brain change constantly, and the interactions between different brain regions also change. In this study, we conceptualized neural dynamics as a trajectory within a state space. A large amount of work showed that the neural dynamics operate on a low-dimensional subspace given the covariant nature of the brain. Here, because we are focusing on the state space that covers whole brain dynamics, the dimensions are the activity of the parcellated cortical networks and subcortical regions. Studies have shown that neural dynamics are not just a random continuous flow in the manifold. Rather, there exist several latent states which can be thought of as hidden clusters in the space. Each of the latent states can be characterized by the mean activity patterns and covariance across functional networks. An example method that we can apply to infer these latent states is the hidden Markov model, which infers the sequence of the hidden states given the observed brain activity patterns. A fundamental question that we would like to address here is whether the neural state dynamics reflect cognitive and attentional dynamics. There is surprisingly lack of evidence on this because studies have mostly been using resting state fMRI to understand neural dynamics. In the more recent work, studies have used cognitive task paradigms like working memory task to show that latent neural state dynamics are aligned to task blocks shown from the synchronized latent state dynamics across participants during the task blocks. Another line of research used naturalistic paradigms like movie watching to show that the probability of latent state occurrence reflect how well people are comprehending narratives in a movie. However, let's say that study 1 characterized neural dynamics during working memory task and study 2 characterized neural dynamics during naturalistic movie watching. What if you're just looking at the neural states that are specific to each context? How can we test that the relationship between neural and cognitive dynamics generalizes? To search for this generalizable relationship, we tested a hypothesis that neural dynamics operate on a shared common manifold. Can we identify latent states that are canonical, which can generalize across a variety of cognitive processes and contexts? If the brain states indeed generalize, then do they play a similar or different functional roles in multiple contexts? We collected human fMRI dataset to address this question. First was 2 runs of the resting state scans. Second was 2 runs of the controlled sustained attention task called Gradual Onset Continuous Performance Task or GRAS-CPT. Next, we included naturalistic tasks where participants were watching episodes of a comedy sitcom, which is really fun and engaging, and an educational documentary which described the history and geographical facts about Korean rivers, so it was relatively boring. Now, using the hidden Markov model and the data we collected, we asked what latent states underlie large-scale neural dynamics in rest, task, and naturalistic contexts. These are the visualizations of the activity patterns and functional covariance of the 4 latent states. The hyperparameter for number of states was decided in a data-driven manner. We labeled the states the DMN, DAN, and SM states following the brain networks that were most active in these states. Interestingly, the base state exhibited activity levels close to the mean, and their covariance strength was also small, mostly near 0. We validated that these latent states were replicated with different datasets. The identified latent states were reliable and robust to hyperparameter selection and pre-processing pipeline. To know more of the specifics, please visit our poster. With these 4 states, we asked if there exists any latent subspace that encompasses all of these states. We were greatly inspired by the seminal work by Margulies and colleagues, which captured main gradients of variance in the resting state functional connectome of 820 individuals. The study showed that the low-dimensional gradients of functional brain connectome captures the unimodal to transmodal axis, as well as the sensory to motor axis of the neural systems. we hypothesized that maybe the spatial gradients work as a generalizable subspace that encompasses temporal dynamics of the large-scale neural activity. We situated the latent states onto the spatial gradient axis based on their activity patterns. First, this is the position of the DMN state in the gradient space, the DAN state, the SM state, and finally the base state. You can see that the four brain states were situated at the extremes and the center of the gradient axis. A large variance of neural dynamics was explained by the predefined gradients. Furthermore, we statistically observed that the base state acts as a hub in neural state transitions, such that latent states are more likely to pass through the base state when transitioning to other states. These results propose that the neural dynamics can be understood as a traversal along the canonical gradients of functional brain organization. So far, we observed four latent states that were shared across multiple contexts. We asked whether the latent state dynamics or the trajectory along the subspace differ across contexts. Here, I listed 7 runs of the dataset. I visualized the latent state sequence of all 27 participants, with the color representing one of the 4 states that occurred at each moment of time. These are the latent state sequence of the GRASS CPT runs, the sitcom episodes, and documentary watching. Notably, for the sitcom episodes, you can see that the latent state dynamics are highly synchronized across participants. However, for the boring documentary, even though it was the same movie watching condition, the synchrony was significantly low. We further hypothesized that this neural synchrony may be mediated by overall attentional engagement, such that the participants' neural states were much more synchronized when they were highly engaged. Next, we calculated the fractional occupancy of the latent states during each of the fMRI runs. You can see that the state occurrence patterns differed across conditions. However, they were very similar among runs of similar contexts. This means that although the 4 brain states were shared, the probability to which the states would occur differed across contexts. Now let's focus on the sitcom episode watching condition. The neural state dynamics were synchronized across individuals, which indicates that the latent states are entrained to shared cognitive states elicited by an external stimulus. How are the neural states modulated by stimulus-driven cognition? Our sitcom stimulus had clear event boundaries with 2 separate events happening in an interleaved AB-AB sequence. We asked if any of the latent states was more likely to occur after event boundaries. The figure here shows the DMN and the base state occurrence, time aligned to narrative event boundaries. The gray areas indicate the null distribution, and this is the actual occurrence proportion of the DMN state for the 2 sitcom episode runs. What you see here is a significant increase in the DMN state occurrence after event boundaries. The result complements past studies that showed increase in the regional bold activity after event boundaries that plays a role in memory integration. On the other hand, the base state decreased this occurrence, compensating for the increase of the DMN state. To validate our results, we applied the HMM that was trained on our own internal dataset to decode the latent state sequence of the external dataset that was collected by different research groups. The same trend of results was observed even when the model was applied to the external dataset, supporting the robustness of our findings. These results indicate that the neural state dynamics are adaptively modulated by the narrative event boundaries. We saw that the latent state dynamics reflect stimulus-driven cognitive states. The neural state dynamics also reflect ongoing changes in attention. During GRASS CPT, the stability of participants' response times at every second indicated whether they were attentive or inattentive during the task. For the sitcom episode watching, we had participants come out of the scanner, we replayed the episode, and asked them to continuously rate how engaging the stimulus was at every moment of time. We related these behavioral measures with the neural state dynamics by averaging participants' attention level at the moments of latent state occurrence. This is the result for the GRASS CPT. What this shows is that participants were in an attentive state during the DMN state, whereas they exhibited inattentiveness during the DAN state. The results indicate that the DMN state reflects high attentional engagement during controlled task performance, which conceptually replicates previous studies. Interestingly, however, we observed a different relationship between attention and neural dynamics during naturalistic conditions, such that the base state occurrence indicated higher attentional engagement. To validate our results, we again applied the HMM on the external datasets and found very similar results. Furthermore, an interesting observation was that the SM state indicated inattentiveness in all of these contexts except for a single GRASS CPT run. Together, though different neural states indicate high attention in different contexts, it seems like the same neural state indicates low attention in both the task and naturalistic conditions. To conclude the talk, we used the hidden Markov model on the human whole brain fMRI dataset and found the common neural states that underlie diverse cognitive contexts. The latent dynamics span the canonical gradients of functional brain organization. Lastly, using both the controlled and naturalistic tasks, we showed that the neural state dynamics reflect not only stimulus-driven cognition, but also changes in attentional states. Please visit our poster session to discuss further. Thank you.